when you change the way you relate to the database, you begin to discover that a lot of the data that you've been using to function is a mistake. And so by paying attention, you start to pay attention to the thought activity, right? You start to see how much of it is unworkable. Until you pay attention to it, you're defending it. Until you pay attention to it, you're identified with it. And so if it's in conflict with something, right, then it's right, and whatever it's in conflict with is wrong. And that's how people live. You know, if we're in a relationship and you present me with something that in my system isn't workable or isn't true, then we're in conflict, and I have to tell you you're wrong. And of course, your system will then tell me I'm wrong, right? And then, so then the typical thing that goes on between human beings starts to happen. So you can look at the data instead of be it. You know, you want to wake up so you can look at the data from a view other than the system itself. If you're in the system, you can't see what's going on in the system. You're part of it. You are a systematic entity that's living in a system of thinking and emotions, right? And so, but you're in the middle of it, right? And you're identified with it, right? So you're protecting it, you're defending it, you're asserting it, you're trying to make friends with people that got similar systems, right? So you can get along, right? But when you wake up, you begin to look at the system and recognize that it is not serving you. The context of the system that most people live in is a context for survival. It's not a context for well-being. It's not a context for being awake. It's not a context for love. It's a context for survival. So one of the things that you want to, this is why it's important to have the teachings along with the practice, right? Because if you just do the practice, you know, possibilities there, you know, and you will get less stress and all the rest of it, right? But if you're learning the teachings along with the practice, right, then you begin to be able to look, especially if you understand the importance of waking up and realizing what you are as the awareness. That has to happen first, right? You can't do this work and have success as a personality. That's not going to work, because you're trying to get the truth to fit the system, and then if you can get the truth to fit the system, then you're going to use the truth to survive, because it's a survival system. Okay. So you can't use the personality to experience the truth and to live a true life. So so the first thing that has to happen is you have to experience an awakening. You have to wake up from being the personality. You have to wake up from being the thinker of the thoughts. And you have to allow yourself to begin to recognize awareness. And when you recognize awareness, you're not recognizing it as a personality. It's awareness aware of itself. It's awareness recognizing itself. That's the only possibility. But when that recognition occurs, right, if it's clear, if it is a transformational experience in which once that occurs, you won't go back. You know, once you wake up, right, you can't go back to sleep, because you've seen it. You've seen being awake, right? And when you see being awake, it is so refreshing, it's so much relaxing, it's so workable, it's so interesting, it's so exciting, right? And when you understand what it has to offer you, there's no way you're interested in going back and being the little personality anymore. So when you have that awakening, now you want to use it, you want to cultivate it, you want to use it, you want to develop it, right? When I say develop it, I don't mean like it's going to change, but what I mean by develop it is having a consistent experience of it as you. Having a consistent experience of the experience of it, which is the experience of well-being. So the first step, once you awaken, once you realize, once you are clear about the fact that your natural state, what they call the sahaja, the natural state, your true being, once you're aware of that, then you can look from there and begin to see the personality's failure. You can look from there and see that the personality is a failed operation. Right? It's a failed operation. If the only thing that mattered in terms of the experience that was possible for human beings was to survive, the operation would work. But that's not the only thing that matters. You know, what matters more than anything is the experience of well-being and the experience of the truth, right? And so once you're awake and you start to pay attention to the thinking activity and the emotions and the physical sensations and the patterns of behavior, right? You start being able to see the unworkability of it. And because you start to see the unworkability of it and you understand, you know, to have it be workable, you want to have the ground of being be the experiencer and the personality be the act of being in the world. The personality is the actor. It's the, as Paul Hederman says, it's the action figure, right? The personality is the actor, right? So when you see when you're awake and you see the processes that go on in the mind and the emotions in the body, you can now use the discretion that's part of the natural state to recognize what's unworkable, right? And you start to discover the way to experience workability and well-being is to have a more and more consistent experience of your nature as awareness itself. This is what the practice of meditation is for, right? To start to become more and more familiar with what it feels like to be you, the real you, right? So that through practice over time, that familiarity begins to extend itself into your ordinary state of functioning in the world. And you start waking up in your life. You start waking up and realizing that you're not the thinker of thoughts, that you're not the character in the story, right? That you're the awareness of that you're the experiencer of that. And when that process begins to happen, you begin to experience well-being. That becomes the context instead of survival. Instead of just surviving your life now, you've learned that when I'm experiencing my true nature, I have this experience called well-being, meaning that I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, and I'm at peace. It's still, it's silent, it's always there. It's me, it's what I actually am. But even though I have glimpses of it during the meditation practice, and maybe at other times unexpectedly, right? What I'm after now is a consistent experience of that so that I can live my life as that. So I can experience being in my life that way consistently. And as I progress in this process, I go from the context of survival to the context of well-being, and then the context of love. Love is the final context. Love is the context that you are. It is your true nature. Love is not a quality of your true nature, it is your true nature. Awareness doesn't accept everything. Awareness can't reject anything, right? So it's beyond accepting or rejecting anything, right? That's why the Heart Sutra is so powerful if you study it and you seek to experience what it's pointing to, because it's pointing to something that's beyond the opposites. Right? It's saying in the Heart Sutra, it's saying form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Right? But the view that it's taking is beyond form and emptiness. It's beyond form and emptiness. So in this teaching that I referred to, right, the teacher talks about the fact that there is a state that is beyond the three time states. The three time states are the past, the present, and the future, right? Then there's the fourth state, right? The fourth state is the Buddha nature. The fourth state is beyond the three states. It's outside of time, right? It's experiencing time beyond time, right? And so when you get beyond time, everything that is true in time is no longer true. So in the Heart Sutra, it says, no death and no cessation of death. No eyes, no ears, no tongue, right? Because you're beyond concepts now. None of that exists when you're beyond concepts and you're in a pure state of Buddhahood, or you're in a pure state of Christ consciousness, or you're in a pure state of awareness. So that's what we're working with. That's where we're going here, right? And the thing about it that makes it a little esoteric is that we talk about it in a language that's dualistic. So we talk about that's where we're going here, right? But we're not really going anywhere. What we're doing is we're being where we already are. right? So that there's no need to do anything for that. There's no place to go, right? But through the practices, you start to experience this beyond state. But now in order to function in the world and enjoy what it has to offer, right? You've got to cultivate it so you can be in the beyond state, right? At the same time, you're participating in the limited reality. This is when Jesus Christ was on the cross, he was going back and forth, right? Why, Father, why have you forsaken me, right? That's the limited reality, right? And then he went into the beyond state and said, my Father and I are one, right? And he was liberated, right? So liberation is simple. It's not about picking up new beliefs or getting an intellectual understanding. It's about seeing directly how suffering happens and waking up again and again now from the trance. Waking up again and again. See, if you're practicing meditation and you're catching on to this, you're getting what this is, right? Then you start waking up again and again because you keep going back to sleep again and again, right? But if you keep waking up again and again, you're waking up into now. You're waking up into now. You're waking up out of the thought process that has a past and a future and this identity called the personality. You're waking up to what's happening now, and you're waking up as no self. You're waking up as awareness, which is no self, being aware of itself. Right? Waking up from the trance. It's about relaxing and grasping the mind. Being in a relaxed state, in a grounded state, an aware state, an awake state, and recognizing the mental state. The mental state is where all the thinking activity happens. It's where all the suffering is occurring. It's about opening and dissolving into the undivided wholeness of here and now. The undivided wholeness of here and now. This is what we always already are. So there's nothing to do. But some people say, I still don't get it. Which is a thought that comes from and refers to the imaginary little me. When you say, I still don't get it, you're being the little personality talking, right? Once believed, it brings forth contracted feelings in the body-mind and a sense of being deficient. Doesn't it? Doesn't it leave you with a feeling of deficient? Something's deficient. I'm missing something here, right? Something's deficient. Which then triggers restlessness and seeking. Keeps you restless, keeps you anxious. You know, I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it. What did I miss? Maybe I need to think different. Maybe I need to do different, right? But it's all imagination. This little me who supposedly doesn't get it is a kind of mirage. And what it is trying to get is already fully present and simply not being noticed because the attention is focused on the story of lack and on the thought sense of being separate and encapsulated. That's all. You're just paying attention to the wrong thing. You keep paying attention to the lie. You keep paying attention to the voice in your head that will always say, I don't get it. It can't get it. It can't get it, right? Because it doesn't have consciousness. To get this, you have to have consciousness. To get this, you have to be awake. You have to have awareness. You have to be real, right? So it can never get it. And it'll say, I can't get it, right? Because it's functioning off a belief and it's functioning with a survival operation. It's not functioning for well-being. It wants to get it so it can use it. For what? To get through life. It wants to get it so it can use it to survive the difficult circumstances that might come my way, right? And as long as you're stuck in that system, in that operation, well-being won't be yours. You can't be happy. You can't be satisfied and you can't be happy because what you're giving your attention to is a mirage. What you're giving your attention to is a dream. It doesn't exist, right? But as long as you pay attention to the thinking activity, it keeps generating the idea that it does exist, right? Anything that appears will disappear. Anything that appears will disappear, except for the awareness in which it's appearing in. Right? This is where we want to settle ourselves, right? You want to keep practicing this and keep learning about it so you can settle into a ground of being that is liberated. So you can settle into a ground of being that when it comes time for what appeared to disappear, this body, when it comes time for what appeared to disappear, right, there's no fear about that because what you are did not appear and won't disappear. And so to have that experience is an experience of liberation. To have that experience is an experience of freedom. To have that experience is an experience in which you can relax, right? You can relax and enjoy the experience of being in the world. Why? Because nothing is going to happen to you. You're not going to die. And all the things that you're afraid of that will happen to you are only happening to the act you're playing. They're only happening to the personality. And the personality is nothing but a conglomeration of wants and needs and fears and desires, right? That's all it is. And that stuff manifests itself in the thinking activity. So if you're paying attention to that, it's got you. If you're paying attention to that and you're identified with that, then you get to live the life that that's living. And the life that that's living is a life of suffering. So the whole point is to wake up and be able to recognize that the operation that's going on in your mind will never deliver the goods. Right? The identity that you're experiencing when you identify with the thought process will never deliver the goods. The personality can never succeed in this life. Personality must fail. It's an impossibility for it to succeed. It's an impossibility for it to be happy. It's an impossibility for it to be at peace and be satisfied. That does not exist for the personality because the personality is a survival context. All it cares about is that it continues to exist. It doesn't care about whether or not it experiences the truth. That's irrelevant to the personality. The evidence for that is very clear. Look around. Look around. Almost 8 billion people, right? And the number of them that are even interested in this conversation is so minuscule, so small it doesn't even show up. That's how, now, that's the thing that you want to understand is that given that that's the case, you are the chosen ones. Given that that's the case, you have been blessed to be in the process of waking up to reality. Right? How that happens, don't ask me. You know, they say there's this cause-effect thing that's going on that's you know, universal, that's beyond our ability to understand it, right? But even without understanding it, you can understand one thing, and that is, if you hear what I'm talking about and you get this possibility, you have been blessed with the possibility. You've been blessed to be presented with the possibility, and if you don't take advantage of it, you will lose what it has to offer. And if you don't take advantage of it, it means that you're not practicing the way it needs to be practiced, and you're not giving energy and attention to the process of continuing to deepen your understanding.